Now we have to think about what concrete is. Concrete is human-made rock. Is the easiest way to think of it. It's a very convenient. It's the most used resource on the planet after water. So it's an incredibly heavily used resource, and it is. And we've had it for thousands and thousands of years. It is basically human-made rock. That's what concrete is. And it's, to be honest, moderately useful, kind of as a material on its own. We only really started using it at scale more recently when we started playing with it and doing clever things with it. And to think about that, we have to jump to 1877 and a chap called Joseph Monier. He's French. This chap, what can we say about this chap? Well, basically, he was a gardener, actually. He was a gardener. And so there have been people talking about, before 1877, people had discussed the idea of, and there had already been sort of concrete using other materials, particularly iron and steel, to reinforce it, to make it stronger. But this chap, you could argue, was sort of the pioneer of getting it. He didn't build the first reinforced concrete structure. He was the first who kind of started thinking about how it actually kind of could work, and he was using it not for buildings initially, anyway, but for plant pots, because banter. It's the banter heuristic of I want better plant pots. So he got a patent for reinforced concrete plant pots, and sort of started looking at more advanced systems of kind of using iron rods placed in like a grid pattern, which anyone who's done anything with reinforced concrete will be familiar with. Although this guy had a reasonable understanding of kind of how the cohesion would be improved and how this mesh of iron would make the concrete work better, he didn't fully understand why. Kind of to understand, to kind of move us from this guy playing around about the same time. So 1877, funnily enough, was about when this guy was granted a kind of a more advanced patent for his kind of grid mesh. At pretty much the same time, we hop over from France to the US and to somewhat of a legend, actually, which is wait a minute, I need my here it is. Sorry, I've forgotten a key detail here, which is yes, a key detail here, which is that he did develop a concrete sleeper. He developed a concrete sleeper, and it was not very successful, and so did not see widespread use. Fairly quickly was not being used very much. So that was kind of the end of that. So we have to hop over the pond to the US to about the same time, 1877. So we're still in 1877. So this kind of all sort of started happening all at once. And we have to talk about a chap called Thaddeus Hyatt. This guy is somewhat of a legend, really. He was an abolitionist. He managed to rub the Senate up the wrong way to the point where they put him in prison until the Senate was abolished temporarily, and then he was let out. And he was campaigning a lot for the rights of workers in his state. It was in Kansas, I think, and all sorts of. He has a very interesting life. He eventually, after the various shenanigans and having been chucked in prison for no good reason, he was like, "Sack this! I'm back. I'm off back to the UK." So moved to London, and in doing so, kind of started doing lots of inventing. He'd always been a curious fella, but he started doing various amounts of inventing. And one of the things he invented was, he started playing with concrete. And as part of his playing with concrete in 1877, he published this report, which is hilariously named An Account of Some Experiments with Portland Cement and Concrete Combined with Iron as a Building Material with Reference to Economy of Metal in Construction and for Security Against Fire in the Making of Roofs, Floors, and Walking Surfaces. I'm not sure where he's from, but that's there you go. That's the mouthful of the report that he published. And it was the first kind of scientific investigation and engineering investigation of ferroconcrete or iron or steel reinforced concrete. Which is quite cool. It was quite, so that converted it from being people going, let's do that, see what happens, to this is kind of how it works. And our boy Thaddeus Hyatt, amongst all of his various creations, one of the things he patented was that concrete, the stuff that you walk over a street, and there's like a basement underneath, and there's like the glass in cells in amongst the concrete, so that some light gets through, but it's strong enough that you don't break the glass. He invented that. So there you go. What a guy. And there's his report. We have to hop forwards again, though. We have to hop forwards once more to 1884. Why, you might ask? Well, because that wasn't the end of our story. We're just talking about reinforced concrete. We're not at sleepers yet. And actually, this chap here is familiar to close followers of the pod, because this chap is called Ernest L. Ransom. And he is indeed a Ransom of the Ransom dynasty of Ipswich. He was one of the, I think he was the son, like one of the sons of the original Ransom of Ransom and Rapier Limited, who, among other things, built Ipswich buffers. There we are, #Ipswich buffers. Yes, he patented, this chap, in 1884, patented twisting the metal so that it would bind better with the concrete, which was a pretty radical thing, because it was starting to understand exactly how this binding mechanism of the concrete and reinforcing concrete worked. And that kind of leads to what we all know as rebar, this kind of ribbed metal, kind of either twisted or kind of set in ribs like this, that helps the concrete to kind of bind onto the reinforcement mesh.